I see us as always evolving and always responding. We respond to those things that need to be done that aren't done by others.
Robert Payton was a teacher of mine, a mentor, he's a friend, and he defined philanthropy simply as voluntary action for the public good.
The word philanthropy may have been coined by the Greeks centuries ago, but it came alive in Pittsburgh over the past 2 centuries through individual and institutional acts of generosity.
If I've got my stats right, Pittsburgh is somewhere around 5th largest foundation per capita in the nation. That's considerable, and Pittsburgh is not a big place either. So having that level of philanthropy able to involve itself in turning the community around, I think has been a big benefit to this community.
Industrial and commercial wealth gained here created foundations that benefit the region decades later. With this philanthropy often came distinctive public and private partnerships and risk-taking approaches others have followed. What makes Pittsburgh such a cradle of innovation and leadership in philanthropy? We asked a number of philanthropic and civic leaders for their views.
One can make a case that American philanthropy sort of really got rolling here with Andrew Carnegie and with others like H.J. Heinz and other philanthropists here in Pittsburgh. And of course, Carnegie from the very beginning was pretty strategic and saw philanthropy as a way of changing and improving society, not just supporting good causes.
While Carnegie is associated with Pittsburgh-generated philanthropy, other names like Heinz, Hunt, Hillman, and Falk extended the reach of their private philanthropy through important civic and business roles in the region.
There evolved a tradition in the United States that if you participate in American capitalism or global capitalism successfully, and you make a lot of money, there's an obligation on you.
There were voices speaking up saying everyone doesn't share in the wealth and prosperity of this community, and those who don't deserve a helping hand. And I think that's been a part of the tradition of the city, the idea that, that the haves care for the have-nots in a very fundamental way.
In Pittsburgh, we had the Grand families who started almost an industry, if you will, around private foundations.
With H.J. Heinz, it started not so much as a philanthropic impulse as a commitment to community. He, from the very beginning, had a tremendous sense of community, which I think in turn came from his parents. They were both devout Christians, and it expressed itself in the good works that he did.
Henry Buell, who made his fortune in a huge department store and also had significant real estate holdings, left his money at the behest of his wife, Louise, for the benefit of Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and the southwestern Pennsylvania region, in that order of priority. It was the region that had been good to him.
And that ethos was shared by other families like the Mellons.
The intent of the founder, who created his and his family's wealth from the region, that there was a huge obligation and commitment to the region. And that's been maintained from one generation to the next.
One of the many things that distinguishes Pittsburgh philanthropy is that so many of the original families who made enormous wealth here in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries continue to support the city and care deeply about it.
We as family members value, number one, our community, number two, the traditions in that community, number three, probably encouraging the community to be the best that it can be and those institutions within the community. We always were encouraged to be philanthropic and charitable.
Pittsburgh is unusual and maybe unique, I just don't know, in that its foundations have all maintained a local focus. And I think that's had everything to do with Pittsburgh's success over the last 30 years.
Pittsburgh has a long history of people coming from different sectors, public and private, to work together to improve the city.
When I think about the decades-long economic transition through which this city is going, there's no doubt that philanthropy has been a shock absorber in developing all sorts of public-private partnerships with governments and municipalities, in job retraining, working with school districts, working with all sorts of civic organizations to soften a really dramatic economic transition in this city that I think absent philanthropy would have been really hard and really difficult for this community.
You have seen people come together, being led by large foundations, small individuals, around the idea and the solution. And so I do think it is a city who has known what it's like to be best at the top and has known what it's like to be at the bottom. And that hunger and that drive to always be a little bit ahead convinces people to come together.
Philanthropists, foundations, have a unique role because they can fail if they have to. They can be an experimental unit. They can take risks. They have the capacity to try new ideas without the kind of consequences that government has or private industry has, if they're boards and they understand that their role is innovation in many cases.
Pittsburgh's philanthropic community has worked together on many projects, revitalizing the riverfronts, transforming blight downtown, tackling public health challenges, or educational inequity. How does it happen? One recent example offers a view of the process. Jack Hines, chairman of the Hines Endowment and Hines Corporation in the late 70s and early 80s, turned the renovation of Hines Hall into an anchor of transformation for the entire cultural district.
Over the years that followed, he saw that people were concerned about coming downtown and going to a performance in Hines Hall because what we now call the cultural district was then the red light district of Pittsburgh.
The possibilities and problems in the area around Hines Hall called for sometimes novel approaches to property ownership, community development, and civic purpose. No one person or sector could accomplish this risky venture alone.
He figured out later in the process that if you want to have others involved, other charities involved, philanthropies involved, you don't say, come and help me, you say, what would you like to do? And we learned that pretty quick. And it happened beautifully, you know, the Mellons and the Bannadams and others really came through.
Trusted advisors and seasoned professionals carried this big idea forward. The scale of the city and accessibility of leaders and resources may also explain how philanthropy works in this city.
The quality of the leadership, the quality of the thinking that went into giving here in Pittsburgh just seemed to be well ahead of other regions, whether it's our size or bigger or smaller.
And one of the things that continues to amaze me about Pittsburgh is you can see people like Elsie Hillman walking down the street and walk up and talk to them. And that has been true for every major family that I know from a philanthropic standpoint, being very accessible, very engaged with the groups and the communities that they're attempting to work with and support.
Engaged philanthropy has taken other forms in Pittsburgh, like the Life Sciences Greenhouse, a collaboration between Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh.
Mark and I went around and met with each foundation head at that time. At the Hines Endowments, at R.K. Mellon, at the McCune Foundation, at Bannadam, all the major foundations. And we said, we have this idea. We want to work together, the two universities, to make Pittsburgh a major life sciences commercial center as well as a research center.
Jerry and I actually scheduled meetings with the leaders of the largest foundations and said, what if for a period of years we agreed we would work together to identify clusters of particular opportunity or potential within the life sciences into something that could be of economic benefit to the community.
And at that moment, everything came together. Our BioVenture with the State Life Science Greenhouse idea, and thus was born the Pittsburgh Life Sciences Greenhouse.
Today, Pittsburgh can claim dozens of computer or life science-based companies and a growing reputation in robotics, health research, and smart technologies, the direct result of long-term and often opportune institutional and philanthropic partnerships. Individual generosity provides another dimension of Pittsburgh's philanthropy. Around the same time Andrew Carnegie was writing his Gospel of Wealth, Mary Shenley, another Pittsburgher, donated the land for what is now Shenley Park and other Oakland amenities. 2 decades later, Madam C.J. Walker, the nation's first African-American woman millionaire, encouraged her employees here to get involved and give back to their community. Yet others practiced philanthropy collectively, combining their money, time, and talents. They created benevolent funds and societies for self-improvement. They built settlement houses, schools, and homes for the needy and neglected. Many gave informally, pooling money for a neighbor's rent or college tuition. Others funded organized appeals or community drives. More than 70% of American philanthropy actually comes from individuals. Whether in wealthy congregations or struggling neighborhoods, this personal philanthropy reflects a commitment to this city and to one another.
If the dynamic works well, you are sometimes a giver and maybe you're sometimes a receiver, but you get to be both.
We have to get better as a community at driving that individual donor so that immediate needs are met, because that's really where individual donors are best, and the long-term aspirational needs of the community are still being attended to. That's where foundations tend to do their best work.
Philanthropy is a big tent, and there are different values within that tent. If I would take one value, the concern with making this community a better place to live, I think that's basically the value that underlines them.
Just as the great philanthropists set a certain example for us, I'm hoping that people like my husband and myself can speak out and should speak out and say, yes, you know, this is what we're doing, you can do it too, and this is why it's important.
Philanthropy is pretty dynamic, and it's particularly dynamic right now. So it has been changing, and it's continuing to change.
We need a better place. We need to be able to breathe fresh air. We need to be able to enjoy life, that it's not about accumulating money and more stuff. It's about helping to share the wealth that there is in the world. So that's what I'm here to do.
As soon as you come across that bridge and through that tunnel, somebody hits you with a vaccine and it makes you a philanthropist. It just makes you understand that you have to give back. It's just amazing to me. It's almost like a virus it's catching.
We in the African American community felt as though we could approach the Alcoa Foundation or approach the Westinghouse Foundation and have a conduit and have a hearing.
You're on one side of the table and the other guy is over there. I mean, that doesn't give you any privileges to act in a superior way.
Certainly if you're a CEO, but beyond that, I mean, I think even if you are a resident, you're part of our community, you really feel this expectation that you should be doing something, whatever it is.
Philanthropy is giving back as a result of something that you have been able to do, and then you can in turn provide something for someone else.